This is your moment. Reach out and hold it. You've got everything on life for you.
Good morning, good morning. How's everybody at the King's house today? It is so awesome to see everyone. So blessed to have you here this morning. I don't know about you, but I am expecting God to do something really beautiful in this place this morning. I'm sorry, you didn't hear what I said. I said I'm expecting God to do something really beautiful in this place this morning. The greatest church on planet Earth. Oh, man, I love you guys. And we're on part 2 of this series called Make the Most of Your Moments. And I believe that God has incredible moment and incredible moments for each and every person that's in this room this morning. I want you to be prepared. I want you to be positioned to make the most of those moments. And last week we talked about the title of the sermon was Don't Miss Your Moment. And we talked about how we have to, throughout this journey, we have to plan for the process. And as much as we don't like it, sometimes that process requires time. And we don't like waiting, and we're impatient, and we want it now, but that's just not the way that God works. So if you're going to make the most of your moment, you have to plan for and embrace this process that God has you in. And this morning, I want to talk about another crucial aspect of making the most of your moment. This morning, the title of the message is, you guys are going to love this, Prepare for Rejection. Yeah. Look at your neighbor and say, I love feeling rejected. Said no one ever. Prepare for rejection. Hey, before we go any further, check out this quick video, guys. So I think we all want to be called by God, and I think we all would agree that you want God's favor to be on your life, and of course you want to do everything that God's called you to do and become everything that God's called you to accomplish. And I mean, what believer wouldn't agree with that? And it's easy to think about. I remember growing up as a kid thinking about all the places I would go and all the nations I would travel to and the jungles I would go through, carrying the gospel and seeing people give their hearts to the Lord. And it's so fun to think about those things. And let me tell you, following God can be an incredible adventure. I can attest to that. It's an incredible adventure. And I've said it for years that the best thing you could ever do with your life is the perfect will of God. And I'm still saying that today. I am a firm believer in that. But there is a flip side to this coin of having God's favor on your life and following Him with your whole heart. The flip side of that coin is that, yes, it can be an adventure. And yes, it's an incredible, beautiful thing and the best way to spend your life. But there's also this reality of it comes with a whole bunch of rejection. And having God's favor on your life and following Him can come with a lot of pain and a lot of hardships. And if you're not prepared for that rejection, if you're not prepared for that pain, then it can seriously derail your life and your relationship with God in a big way. So if you're ever going to make the most of your moments, if you're ever going to wholeheartedly follow Jesus and live a life completely surrendered to Him, then you better embrace and you better prepare for the reality that there's going to be some serious rejection, some serious heartache that goes along with this adventure. Since America had declared its independence in 1776, the North and South had grown apart and had become very different places. The North was heavily dependent on manufacturing and industry, and the South had become almost solely independent on agriculture. And tensions had been brewing for several decades over just a different way of life, their different beliefs on state rights, and most importantly, their different beliefs on slavery. And when Abraham Lincoln was elected president in 1860, 7 states seceded from the Union, and quickly thereafter 4 more seceded from the Union. And in 1861, the first shots of the Civil War were actually fired, which led to a terrible 4 years of war here in this nation. But here we are today at the turning point of that war, at a place that is so crucial for our history. This is where the Battle of Gettysburg took place. And between July 1st and July 3rd, over 157,000 people battled here, 50,000 of them either giving their life or being wounded. But what an instrumental, incredible place this was to our nation's history. So I am here this morning with probably the greatest American president of all time. And as remarkable as his list of accomplishments is, his list of failures is also pretty impressive. In 1816, Lincoln's family was forced out of their home. He had to go to work to support them at that time. In 1818, his mother passed away. In 1831, he decided to try his hand in business and failed. In 1832, he ran for the state legislature, and he lost. In the same year, he also lost his job. He tried to get into law school, but wasn't accepted. In 1833, he borrowed some money from a friend to begin a business, and by the end of the very same year, he was bankrupt. He spent the next 17 years of his life paying off this debt. In the year 1834, he ran for state legislator again. This time he won. In 1835, he was engaged to be married, but his sweetheart passed away, and his heart was completely broken. And by the year 1836, he had had a total nervous breakdown and was unable to get out of bed for 6 months. In 1838, he sought to become Speaker of the state legislature. He lost. In 1840, he sought to become elector. He lost again. In 1834, he decided he was going to run for Congress this time. And the same result, he lost. In 1846, he ran for Congress again. This time he won. He went to Washington and seemingly did a good job. But in 1848, he ran for re-election to Congress. This time he was defeated. In 1849, he sought the job of land officer in his home state. He was rejected. In 1854, he ran for Senate of the United States. And you guessed it, he lost. In 1856, he sought the vice presidential nomination at his party's national convention. He received less than 100 votes. In 1858, he ran for U.S. Senate again, and again, he was defeated. However, in the year 1860, he ran for the President of the United States, and as history would tell us, he won that election. After all of that rejection and after all of that pain that he endured for so many years, Lincoln stood right here and made history. Shortly after the Battle of Gettysburg, he stood right here at this very location and gave probably one of the most famous speeches ever given, the Gettysburg Address, where he said, 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. History was made here that day in 1863, and Lincoln may not have been someone that was handpicked. This guy's going to change history. He might not have been the most qualified. I'm sure he doubted himself, and I'm positive other people doubted him along the way, as they will you. So I just want to challenge you today to embrace that rejection, to embrace that pain, and realize that it's nothing more than part of the process. That God is working something extraordinary in your life because he wants to work something extraordinary through your life. You watching this today, right there where you're sitting, God can use you to do incredible and extraordinary things. All right, all right. I always feel like Marty Stauffer when I see myself on video. Anybody remember Marty Stauffer? And until next time, enjoy our wild America. We all want the end results, and preachers do a fantastic job of telling you how many wonderful, beautiful things God has in store for your life. But the part that they leave off sometimes is the road and the process that you're going to have to go through to get there. If somebody went to Abraham Lincoln as a young child and said, you are going to be one of the most influential humans to ever walk the face of the earth. You are going to rewrite American history, global history. You will see slavery in this nation abolished. Like, yeah. And the next 50 years of your life is going to be a complete and total dumpster fire. Yeah. But that's part of it. If you're going to make the most of your moments, you better prepare for rejection. Nobody said that this Christian life was going to be easy. Nobody said it was going to be a tiptoe through the tulips. Actually, I'm here this morning to tell you quite the opposite. We all agree we want to be called by God. 100% of you would raise your hand. Do you want the blessings of God to be upon your life? Do you want the favor of God to be upon your life? Do you want God to lead you and guide you? Like, yes, right? But there's absolutely a flip side to that coin this morning, that life comes at a severe and a steep price. I want you to be prepared for it. I want you to look in Luke chapter 1, starting in verse 26. In the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy, God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a town in Galilee, to a virgin pledged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of David. The virgin's name was Mary. The angel went to her and said, greetings, you who are... What's that say? Highly favored. The Lord is with you. I mean, if an angel showed up in my house, that is exactly what I would want the angels to say. Greetings to you, Mark. You are highly favored. God is with you. Like, yeah, man, that's what I'm talking about. And Mary, you're going to carry the Messiah. And what's birthed out of you is going to change human history, and your name will be remembered, and statues will be erected about you. And of course, Mary's like, yeah, what an incredible moment, Mary. This is your moment. Good luck with the whispers around town. I mean, I know you live in a culture where that is really frowned upon. So, good luck with the whispers. Good luck with the rumors. Good luck with all the ugly things that are going to be said about you. Your reputation's probably going to be completely destroyed. Also, your fiance, like, good luck explaining that. Right? Joseph, here's the deal. I'm pregnant, but I haven't slept with anyone. Joseph's response, yeah. To the point, Joseph absolutely, positively did not believe this woman. You realize that, right? He didn't believe her to the point that God literally had to send an angel and say, hey, listen, Joseph, here's the deal. Mary's fine. Like, that is some extreme intervention. But Mary, you're highly favored, and God is with you. Yeah, this is your moment. And all God's people said, yeah, amen. Hip, hip. Yeah. And the Lord showed up to this prophet named Samuel one day and said, Samuel, I want you to go to this man named Jesse's house. And he has a son that I'm going to anoint as the next king of Israel. Samuel was the most famous person on planet Earth at that time. I mean, he was the prophet. And Samuel shows up at Jesse's house and he says, Jesse, get all your sons. And one by one, Samuel goes son by son and ask God, like, is this the guy? Is this the guy? Is this? And one after another, nope, that's not the guy. Nope, that's not the guy. No, they get through all the sons. And I'm sure Samuel's thinking, like, this is a little awkward. And, like, this is going to be a bizarre question, but you got any more kids tied up somewhere? Like, one misbehaving, is he not allowed to hang out? Or so here, pick up the verse in 1 Samuel 16, verse 12. So he sent for him, this is David, and had him brought in. He was glowing with health and had a fine appearance and handsome features. Then the Lord said, rise and anoint him. This is the one. I mean, David, I know you weren't invited. I know you've been forgotten about. I know that you don't get to hang out with the rest of the family, and I know you're probably mistreated, but this is your moment, David. You are the one.
What an incredible thing for the prophet Samuel to say about you. You are the one. And his family was super supportive about it. And his brothers were so happy for David. And man, they just really celebrated. And they said, David, yeah, we're so proud of you, man. And we're with you 100%. Every step of the way, we're going to be behind you, David. Because that's how all of our family members always treat us, right? I mean, everyone's just always so supportive and rallies in your corner, and that's what families do. Until you flip over one more chapter, and this is the next place we see David in Samuel 17. And again, he's minding his business, feeding the sheep, and his dad says, hey, I want you to take this bread and this meat and this cheese to your brothers who are in battle. Like, just go check on them, deliver these supplies. One more scripture, sorry, bud. So David delivers all these, the bread and the cheese, and this is where the story picks up. When Eliab, David's older brother, heard him speaking with the men, this is what his brother's response was. He burned with anger and asked, why have you come here? And with whom do you leave those few little measly sheep in the wilderness, you little shepherd boy? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came here only to watch the battle. And David's like, man, I just brought you some pizza, man. I'm trying to help. If somebody wants to bring pizza to my house, I'm not going to respond this way. But I'm just saying, like, he was ridiculed by everyone in his life. He was outcast. He was mistreated by everyone in his life. But David was anointed. He was the one. The power of God was on his life. And that's what we all want. Isn't it? I mean, that's what we all want. And another guy who had some pretty serious issues with his brother was this guy named Joseph in Genesis chapter 37. Now Israel, whose name was Jacob, loved Joseph more than any of his other sons. I can relate to that. I'm definitely my parents' favorites. Definitely. Because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, again, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. We would all agree, man, we want to be loved. We want to be favored. And as mean, as ugly as David's siblings were, like, these siblings took it next level. When you look in verse 19, Jacob has sent Joseph just to go check on his brothers, just go find them. They're watching the sheep, just want to make sure everything's okay with his brothers. Here comes Joseph walking up, and here's what his brothers said. Here comes that dreamer, they said to each other. Come now, let's kill him. Whoa! And throw him into one of those cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams. I mean, talk about next level. These are your brothers. Let's kill him. And someone intervened and said, hey, slow down a little bit. Like, let's not get carried away. Let's not kill him. Let's just throw him in that pit and just leave him for dead. The other's like, yeah. Look at the next verse. Yeah, that's a great idea. So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the ornate robe he was wearing, and they took him and threw him into the cistern. The cistern was empty, and there was no water. Let's just throw him in that hole, and we'll just leave him there. Again, Joseph is so loved. He's the favorite. He is so favored, God's hand. He has dreams burning on the inside of him. And so one of the other brothers finally stepped up and said, hey, man, we're not barbarians. Like, my God, calm down. Look, here comes these Midianites. Instead of letting him die in this pit, let's at least make a financial gain. Like, let's at least sell him for something. I mean, come on. Let's not be irrational. Look at this verse. Next verse, please. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites who took him to Egypt. Look at your neighbor and say, prepare for rejection. If you're going to make the most of your moment, if you're going to become everything that God's called you to be and accomplish everything that God has called you to accomplish, you better prepare for a serious amount of rejection. You better prepare for pain. You better prepare for lies. You better prepare for being extremely misunderstood and extremely misinterpreted. People will not cheer for you. I'm going to say that one more time. You need to get this. If you're waiting for people to come along beside you and cheer you on, you're probably going to be waiting a while. People are not going to cheer for you. People are not going to come along and encourage you. Some people will, and it's glorious when they do. But if you're basing your decisions on someone cheering for you or encouraging you, again, you're never going to make it very far. They're not going to cheer for you. They're not going to encourage you. People will be threatened by you. People will be intimidated by you. Some people are going to be just flat out mean to you. In your pursuit of God and your pursuit of becoming everything that He's called to be, you are going to be rejected. We have to remember this morning, in the wise words of Babe Ruth, that the loudest boos come from the cheapest seats. The people who have the least amount invested in you will be the people who are fighting you the most. Just like a duck in water, church, we got to learn to let that stuff roll up off of our back, man. They're not invested in you. If you wouldn't take advice from them, then why in the world would you take criticism from those people? You got to just keep going in some of those instances. Can I get an amen? You got to just keep going in those instances. Let me tell you, 8-9 years ago, coming out of the easily, nothing's ever even come close to it, the worst season of my life, 3 or 4 years of the worst season of my life. You know the story, man. I battled crippling depression. I was suicidal. I was a broken human being in any way that a person could be mentally and emotionally broken. I was there, people. I was in a bad way. I finally was going home. And man, I was excited to be going home. I needed some people in my life that were going to love on me, that were going to encourage me, that were going to help bandage up those wounds and give me some hugs and kisses. And I was so ready. I was so broken, and I was so ready just to go home. I needed people to encourage me. I needed people to support me. And I go to my home church. My church. This is a place I had served for 10 years of my life as a worship pastor and as a youth pastor. And I just knew, like, when I go home, man, these people are going to just embrace me and love me, and it's going to be wonderful, and I'm going to get whole, and I'm going to get healthy. And I'll never forget when I sat down with the pastor. And man, I'm broken, and I'm crying, and I just more or less, I need to come home. Like, I need this church in my life right now. And I will never forget his response. He looked right at me. And just as cold and detached as a human could possibly be, he says, "Is there nowhere else you could go?" Nope. "Is this the only church that wants you?" I mean, talk about kick a fellow when is there nowhere else you could go? Is there nobody else? Now, I'm not sure you're a good fit here. And I believe that in that moment, God stood up. And he said, as a matter of fact, there is another church that wants him. As a matter of fact, I do have a place. This is not the only church that he can go to. Here's what you got to grab hold of this morning. And I mean, some of you really need to grab onto it, okay? Because what one man throws away and considers trash is another man's answer to prayer. Come on, somebody. What one person discards as trash is somebody else's answer to prayer. And the very same Joseph who is discarded, who is mistreated, who was put out like yesterday's trash, he didn't change, man. He was the same Joseph. The same person that was thrown away was the answer to prayer for Egypt, man. He saved an entire nation. What one person threw away, another person said, man, that is exactly what I need. You're my answer to prayer. Come on, somebody. When you find yourself in those places, it's so easy to believe, man, I really am discarded. Man, I'm really not good enough. When we find ourselves in that process that we talked about last week, where nothing's happening and what God said is not, and you're just in this horrible, it's easy to start believing some of those things. But let me tell you, whoever they are this morning, you cannot let them define you. They don't define you. The opinions of they don't define you. There should only be one opinion that defines you this morning, man, and that's his opinion. It's the only opinion that matters. He says, He says you're called. He says you're chosen. He says you're handpicked. He says you're highly favored. He says that you have a plan and a purpose and a destiny. He says that you have a future and a hope. I'm so happy this morning that I don't need the opinions of men. I don't have to have your approval. I don't have to have your say-so. I just need one person's approval, man. I'm not defined by those things. They, whoever the they committee is, I'm about to preach, baby. I'm feeling it up here this morning. Whoever they is, you got to get a hold of this. They can't stop you. They can't stop you, man. They don't hold your destiny in their hands. He holds your destiny in your hands. Every mistake and every failure and every success, they can't stop you. You don't need people cheering you on. You don't need people's approval. You don't need people's encouragement. The only person that can stop you this morning is you, man. You. You got to get this. Whoever they are. Here's what they don't understand. Somebody in faith needs to grab hold of this morning. Man, I feel it in my heart. Somebody needs this morning. Here's what they're never going to understand. They weren't rejecting you. As a matter of fact, God was actually protecting you because he had something better for your life. You weren't being rejected. You were being protected because God had something better for your life. Look at Genesis chapter 45. Look at Genesis chapter 45. This is after Joseph's been through slavery and he's been through the prison. He's worked the process. Now he's second in charge in the most powerful nation in the world. All of his dreams are coming true. This is Joseph's moment, and he has made the most of it. And here comes these brothers, the ones that were going to kill him and throw him in the pit and then decided to sell him into slavery. Here they come, boy. This is your chance, Joseph. Get them. Here they come. Then Joseph said to his brothers, come close to me. I'm about to get you, boy. Come close to me. When they had done so, he said, I'm your brother Joseph. And they thought, uh-oh, we're in trouble. I'm your brother Joseph, the one you sold into slavery. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. Next verse. For 2 years now there's been a famine in the land, and for the next 5 years there will be no plowing and no reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. So then, look at your neighbor and say, so then, it was not you who sent me here, but God. I'm telling you this morning, King's House, you haven't been rejected. You were protected by Jesus because he has something better for you. Man, I'm so happy this morning that the things I prayed for didn't come to pass. I'm so happy this morning that the things I asked for didn't work. That things didn't work out the way that I wanted them to, that I hoped they would. I'm so happy this morning because if I had gotten my way, I would have missed out on the best that God had for my life. If I had gotten my way, I wouldn't be here this morning. If I had gotten my way, I wouldn't have seen everything that God's done and seen the lives that are changed. There wouldn't be schools in Africa. I'm so happy this morning. I wasn't rejected by those people, man. I was protected by those people. God had something better for my life. And he has the best for you. And the best thing you could ever do with your life is the perfect will of God. And Mark, sometimes it hurts. You dang straight, boy. Like real hurts. Cry yourself to sleep for weeks kind of hurt. Sometimes I don't like it. Right? None of us do. People that I thought were going to be with me all the way quit me. I didn't quit you. God removed them. If somebody's going to quit you in the hard times and they were never with you in the good times. That's a fact. That's a fact, man. So people come in your life and they come out of your life. And God puts you here and God puts you there. And it is a painful process full of hurt and rejection and soul searching, and we could keep on going down the list, but I'm happy to tell you this morning that process is so worth it. So what am I supposed to do in this process? How am I supposed to deal with this rejection? Pastor Mark, I'll tell you exactly how you're supposed to deal with this rejection. In Isaiah chapter 50, because the sovereign Lord helps me, I will not be disgraced. Therefore I have set my face like flint. And I know, look at your neighbor and say, I know. I've set my face and I know I will not be put to shame. How do I deal with this rejection, Pastor Mark? I want to make the most of my moment. I don't want to miss on what God has for me. You set your face like flint. You don't look to the left. You don't look to the right. You keep your eyes on Jesus, the author and the finisher of your faith. And you wake up every single morning and say, God, I'm going to follow you today. No matter how difficult it is, no matter how hard it is, no matter how much it hurts. I don't care what people say. I don't care what people do. I don't care what people, rumors. I don't care. I don't need that, God. All I need is you. You set your face like flint because God uses that pain and God uses that rejection. If you let him, if you remove the negative energy from a car's battery, do you know what happens with that car? It does nothing. I don't care how fancy that car is, how souped up that car is. If you remove the negative energy from that car's not moving. We all love the positive things in our lives, and we want more blessings. We want to do everything we can to stay away from hardships, but God uses those hardships because when he takes all those plans and he takes all those purposes and all those giftings and those callings that each and every one of you have, when he takes all that good stuff, and man, then he takes all this pain and all this rejection and all this hurt and all this negative energy, when he hooks both of those worlds together in a human being that says, God, I'm setting my face like flint. God, all I want is you. I don't care what's going on around me. God, I'm going after you. Man, he can rev that car up in such a big, crazy, massive way, and actually that pain is going to thrust you further and faster than you ever thought possible. What are you supposed to do with that rejection? Embrace it, man, and let that rejection fuel the fire of the passion that's inside of you that says, I'm going forward with God no matter what, hell or high water. I'm following Jesus. That's how you make the most of your moment, man. That's how you do it. You prepare for rejection. I'll read Isaiah one more time. I'm going to wrap this thing up. Isaiah chapter 50, one more time, boss. Because the sovereign Lord, these are promises. Because the sovereign Lord helps me. You got a helper today. I will not be disgraced. I don't know what the future holds for you, King's House, but I absolutely know who holds that future. And I know you're not going to be disgraced. Therefore, I have set my face like flint. And I know I will not be put to shame. It's a promise for you this morning. No matter where you are in that process, God has an incredible moment, incredible moments, incredible plans and purposes. I want you to live in those. I want you to walk out those dreams and those passions. I want you to make the most of those. If you're ever going to do that, you have to embrace the process, and you got to plan for rejection. You got to be prepared for rejection. Let's pray. God, I love you so much. God, I'm so thankful today. God, your word promises you never leave us. You never forsake us. God, not for one moment. You are always good. You are always faithful. God, no matter what it looks like, no matter what it feels like, no matter what it smells like, no matter what people say it is, God, forget all that stuff. God, you are good and you're faithful to us. And God, you've started a good work in our lives. And you're faithful to bring those things to completion. God, as difficult as it is, as much as we might not like it, God, we are making a conscious decision today. I'm preparing to embrace some of that rejection. I'm preparing today to embrace some of that pain. I know it's not men doing it to me. Men might be thinking they're hurting me and rejecting me, but as a matter of fact, God, you are accepting me and you are protecting me, God, because you truly do have what's best for our lives. So, God, we just say, as Jesus prayed, God, not our wills, but your will be done in each and every one of our lives. Jesus, we love you so much. We can't thank you enough for being the amazing Father and the amazing God that you are. We give you all the praise this morning. In Jesus' name we pray. Everybody say it. Give God some praise this morning if you would, King's House. I love you guys. Have an amazing week. No classes this Wednesday, fall break, or sign up for discipleship classes next Wednesday, the 21st. God bless you.